In this video, I'm going to show you how you can generate invoices automatically in Google Docs using data from your Airtable and the On2Air app. So the first thing you need is your base in Airtable, and I have this one called the SaleCore Company Sales Demo, and you can actually copy this from the On2Air website, on2air.com, and it will have all the fields that you need to get started. So specifically here, I have a checkbox field that says generate invoice, and this is what is going to generate our invoice in Google Docs once we set up the automation in On2Air. So in On2Air, you want to click the Actions app and then choose Google Functions. And from here, we're going to create a new Google function and go to the Google Docs, Create and Export. Now, what I've already done in my Google Drive is I have an invoice template that has everything set up. So you can also download this from the On2Air website, on2air.com, and download this template, and it has everything you need, and it also has the placeholders that we'll use to generate the document. So back in On2Air, in the function, we're going to click Add Configuration. And if you haven't already, you can set up your Airtable connection in the settings. And then we're going to choose our base and the table, which in this case is the Invoices table. In trigger mode, we're going to choose checkbox, and we're going to choose that Generate Invoice checkbox field that we had. And there are multiple trigger modes that you can use if you would rather use a field updated or a last modified date to automatically generate invoices. In this instance, we're just going to click the checkbox and it will generate the invoice. We're going to trigger on checked. And then in our Google connection, be sure you have this one connected to On2Air. We're going to choose that, and then in the source file mode, we want to click Use a Single Template, and then we're going to choose that invoice template that we have. Now, the destination folder mode is how we can save where we're going to save the invoices once they're created. So you can choose to save them in a single folder, or you can dynamically create folders based on a client name or something like that if it's not already. In this one, we're just going to make it simple and save all the files in a single parent folder. And this folder is going to be our Invoices folder in Google Drive. And for the field name, we're going to use this invoice ID client name. So when it creates the invoice, it will save this as the name of the invoice. In the field merge output, we want to always merge the fields. So this will take all of the fields from our Airtable base and put it into the Google Doc, depending on the placeholder. Now, here is where you can choose to save the URL of the new Google Doc that is created. This URL will be saved back into that Airtable base. And what you can do if you use On2Air Amplify, you can then view it, that the newly created invoice inside of Airtable, and edit it as needed. We're also going to export it as a PDF, and then we're going to save it in our base. So you can save the Google Drive file, and you can save the newly created PDF inside of Airtable. We're going to click Save Action, and then we're going to test it. And you just need to be sure you've connected to an API like Zapier. We're going to use in this one. And we're going to go ahead and click Generate Invoice so it has something to test. Click Start Test. Test the function. So our function ran successfully, and you can see it unchecked the Generate Invoice now. We're going to go back to our drive, go to Invoices, and you can see here that we have our new invoice, and this contains all the data from this record here, and you can see it named it the invoice ID client name. And then when we go in here, you can see that it added all the fields from the record that we needed. So check out On2Air. This is the Google Function app that you can use to automatically generate documents.